The government appears to have conceded for the first time that the Prime Minister cannot prorogue Parliament in order to force through a no-deal Brexit. In response to a legal letter from the businesswoman and anti-Brexit campaigner Gina Miller, the government's lawyers say Parliament won't be prevented from sitting in the period leading up to the UK's exit on October the 31st. Now, Ms Miller, who took the government to court and won the right for Parliament to trigger Article 50, reassembled her legal team last month with instructions to stop Boris Johnson shutting down Parliament and forcing through a no-deal Brexit against MPs' wishes. Well, Gina Miller is here. Good morning. Nice to see you. Look, I've read through this response. There's a lot of legalese in there. Break it down for us. What exactly are they saying to you?
Well, what they've said is unequivocally they accept that to close down Parliament, to bypass them in terms of Brexit, or stopping a no-deal Brexit in particular, is illegal. So without having to go to court, they've conceded. We've basically called their bluff. So
they're saying, in effect, that there are rules in place where they have to meet for a certain amount of time before October the 31st.
Yes, the MPs passed this Northern Ireland Executive Act, and under Section 3 of that, the MPs will have 3 occasions of several days at a time between the 4th of September and the 31st of October. And the government, as I said, has given me a huge amount of reassurances and has gone to great lengths to say, yes, we absolutely agree that the MPs will have that opportunity. So it's a lot of bluster, what they're saying, that MPs will be denied that opportunity.
So proroguing of the Commons will not happen, but the Prime Minister's heading to Germany and France this week, where he's going to say, amongst other things, no deal cannot be stopped if that is the only option. Is that actually true then?
Well, whilst they've given this reassurance of no prorogation of Parliament, one of the central tenets of my legal letter to the Prime Minister was to say that if you deny MPs the ability to pass legislation to stop no deal, that would be contrary to Parliament's sovereignty. So we will be going back again to seek that reassurance, amongst others, that they will allow Parliament to pass legislation to stop no deal.
But it still leaves a very big question mark, doesn't it? And there are lots of people coming forward. We talk to them all the time saying, you know, this cannot happen. Parliament will not allow it to happen. But what you're effectively saying is, ultimately, it could happen, and there's nothing anyone could actually do to stop it.
Well, at the moment, Parliament has to find a way, instruments and ways of ensuring that they can pass that legislation, scrutinising, which is what the government letter has confirmed, that Parliament will be able to scrutinise and examine all options when it comes to exiting, is not the same as giving them the ability to pass legislation. And because we already have in legislation that the 31st of October is our exit day, they need to pass other legislation to prevent no deal or to change that date after an extension. So forgetting about, you know, who's going to be king of the castle in a union government or etc., I would say this letter shows that MPs really have to concentrate on ensuring that they have that opportunity, and we will go back to make sure that the MPs are given that opportunity via further legal assurances. But prorogation is off the table.
Right. But, so in all of this, though, you know, because you've studied this more than most of us, the parliamentary arithmetic and the time scale involved and the fact that they're all on holiday at the minute, in effect, means that change of legislation, primary legislation, is very unlikely to happen.
I don't believe that at all, because actually you have to question why the conference season, for example, the Parliament is rising for those 3 weeks. We still have an opportunity where Parliament could be brought back and has to sit. And it doesn't take long, actually, if you could do it within 24 hours. So the fact is, MPs need to find the tool to do that. And if they choose to do so, to be prevented by the Prime Minister from passing legislation, we feel it would be illegal, not least based on the judgment in my first case.
So what more action is it possible for you to take if you wanted to pursue it further?
Oh, we will be pursuing it further. We will go back to with our reply to the government's reply, seeking further reassurances, but in particular, the assurance that MPs will have the opportunity to bring legislation if they wish to do so.
I mean, the last time you were on this programme, the Home Secretary appeared not long afterwards and said, look, it's not acceptable to use the courts to tie the hands of MPs. I mean, aren't you, in effect, looking for legal loopholes to stop these people who have been elected into office doing their job?
But that is the point. It is ensuring elected MPs have the opportunity to do their job and protecting parliamentary sovereignty, which is what my first case is about. And this is exactly the same, in that a Prime Minister is not above the law. And actually, this is what they've agreed in the letter, that Boris Johnson is not above the law, which is great to hear, and that they can't bypass Parliament. And we just need to make sure that parliamentarians have the opportunity to be sovereign.
And yet, in terms of being sovereign, Parliament was sovereign, wasn't it, when it agreed the extension and the exit date of the 31st. Some would argue that they've made that decision. The democratic process within Parliament has happened. That decision's been made. Now it needs to be stuck to.
Well, Parliament doesn't just happen on one day. It's an ongoing process. And more than ever, you see today the Yellowhammer document. You know, when you now see what we're facing when it comes to no deal, then parliamentarians are expressing their view, and that's why we elect them, to protect us. And that's what they're going to try and do, protect us from this disastrous no deal.
Well, I mean, you've been accused, and to be fair, lots of people who want to either remain or stop a no deal have been accused of scaremongering, project fear. I don't
think you can say that now. Now you've got the government's own papers.
Well, no, but I was going to say, in relation to Yellowhammer, this document, this leaked cabinet document that says, you know, there may be, got to prepare for shortages of food, fuel and medicines. The government says, well, that's looking at a worst-case scenario. That's planning for the worst. They don't expect any of that to happen.
That's not what the report says. And actually, it even now has changed from the original report, and now it says that there is likely to be a hard border in Ireland. So it also says things that there are no bilateral agreements with any of our member states, the fact that our chemicals for our waters actually can't be stockpiled, that 3/4 of our medicines come from the EU. These are not scaremongering stories. This is the government's own assessment. And if you then add that to the Bank of England's assessment, the Office of Budget Responsibilities assessments, you know, how much more torrent of assessments do you need to realise that this is putting people's lives in danger?
But one thing the Prime Minister has made it very clear about is the idea that he wants a new deal. I mean, in effect, he's going to the EU and saying, give us a free trade deal, or we're going to leave anyway. Now, the more you do to rule out the possibility through legal means, and the more that MPs do in the House of Commons to rule out the possibility of a no-deal Brexit, you just undermine his position, don't you, in trying to actually get the sort of deal which he thinks will be good for this country?
No, because they're two different things. One is leaving in a way that is, if we do leave, that it's not no deal. And then the second part, which is the difficult bit, we haven't even started, is negotiating the future relationship. And so the two things, mixing them up, is actually not how the process works. So they are two completely separate things. One is leaving, and the other is actually then negotiating over, if we were to get a deal, over the next 2 years or so, or however long it takes to get that future relationship.
But he has said he wants a deal. And by taking no deal off the table, that does weaken his hand, doesn't it? They can just turn around and say, you've got a deal and we're not going to change it, which is all they've said so far.
Well, yes, and I don't know who exactly he's negotiating with, because there's nobody sitting in the Commission till November. So the idea that there's a lot of bluster and propaganda going on here. And from our point of view, we've just taken one off the table. They've agreed with us. Prorogation is not a tool that they can use. Now we have to look at all the other issues and see if the Prime Minister is actually acting within the law.
OK, Gina Miller, very good to talk to you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.